Welcome to SoulWhat, a SoulTopia production. Every Tuesday, Michelle and Holzer Welch take a deep dive into the intriguing and proactive world of metaphysics, a world beyond our human perception. They'll talk to empaths, readers, and other guests from all walks of life to find out what's hiding under the surface, uncover the mysteries of our modern world, and reveal the answers you need to live a happy, healthier life. Now, here's your hosts, Michelle and Holzer Welch.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing today, Roger?
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
You are. That's great.
Yep.
I know you've been really busy.
Yeah, busy getting ready for Tide, but also we got beautiful weather for a change, nice and warm, sunny.
It's amazing in Dallas.
Nice.
Yes. How are you, Matt, today?
I'm great. I've had my windows open, I think for like a week straight almost, or since this week, since Saturday at least, and it's been awesome. I love when the weather's like this.
It's
did some work
beautiful.
outside.
Yeah,
good.
work. You did work?
Why are you asking like that? Somebody's got to take care of the yard. Somebody's got to make sure everything looks nice. I don't want to be the only overgrown yard in the neighborhood.
I'm proud of you.
And I don't hire that out. I do that myself.
Good.
Do the edges and everything.
That's really good. No, it's a perfect day to do it. I don't know why that surprises me.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
It's easy to have it done.
Hipster out there doing work.
I bet he's got one of those big brim hats. He's out there with that big brim hat on.
I do have one of those. Well, not a big brim. It's more like a Indiana Jones style kind of like yeah. But that's for grilling. That's purely for show. I don't wear it for work.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited, and we're not going to take a lot of time chit-chatting about Matt and his hipster clothing while he...
Why not? How am I... We'll have to talk about this later.
We'll talk about it later. You're not hipster.
I don't know how I've ever given off the hipster vibe.
A little.
Every now and then.
We have a great guest on tonight, so we don't have any time to waste talking about Matt and his hipster clothing. But I said it again. Yeah. But I'm really excited to have on a friend and someone well known to probably everyone listening, Dave Scrader. Dave Scrader is an experienced paranormal investigator and host of the popular paranormal podcast, The Paranormal 60, with Dave Scrader. You can also see Dave on Travel Channel and Discovery Plus TV series, The Holzer Files and Ghost of Devil's Perch. You may also recognize Dave from his other numerous appearances on paranormal TV shows and documentaries as a guest investigator or researcher. I think of historian, so I'm adding to that bio.
I'll take it.
Yes. From an early age, Dave has been surrounded by the strange and anomalous, from haunted homes to creature sightings, UFO encounters, and more. Dave invites you along on his journey and thanks you for taking him along on yours. Never a casual observer, Dave pushes claims of the paranormal to the limits by investigating them himself and visiting some of the most active and haunted locations in the world. Thanks for coming on, Dave. Welcome to the show.
Man, what an opening. Somebody should write that down and put it on my website.
Was it pulled straight from there?
Exactly. Very well written, though.
Very well written.
Yeah. Hey, and I don't want to brag, but we're getting pretty amazing weather here. We have all the windows open. We're out in our shorts and t-shirts washing cars. It's almost 50 today. 50 degrees here in Minnesota.
Now, here's my thing. So you were washing cars. You were washing your car and Matt was mowing?
I was going to say, are you going to act surprised that he's out washing cars or anything?
I was laying out. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't. I was reading and trying to write. But yeah, I mean, everybody's getting out and getting into the weather. Yeah, it's good.
I wasn't really washing the cars. It's 50 degrees outside, but this is summer weather here in Minnesota.
I thought y'all were getting ready to get snow again.
Yeah, no, we've got at least 3 weeks before the snow returns.
Okay.
Oh, wow. And did you get out and do, like, not laundry?
No, I swept the trailer out so I could reload it with all the stuff for Tide.
Yeah, I know you have been working hard. Well, Dave, we are so excited to have you on. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And I know these guys, including Matt, have a lot of questions for you because they are big fans. Y'all are going to be fanboying here, right?
I'll tell you that. All right.
Nice.
So, because we're probably close to the same age, so it's not like, oh yeah, one of those things. But when my kids were young, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, get up, make them pancakes, and we sit around watching all the ghost paranormal shows, everything. Like every weekend, that's what we did. From the time they were probably like 2 or 3 years old up.
You scared this?
Oh no, they're not scared of anything, obviously.
They aren't.
But what got you started in all of this?
Same thing. I got up every Saturday morning and watched Scooby-Doo. Right?
too,
It was that same kind of influx. Only I remember all the originals. There was Scooby-Doo and Goober and the Ghost Chasers and the Funky Phantom. So I grew up on a steady diet of paranormal shows. And then I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched.
Yep.
And then I already, that was all fantasy on TV, but I was living the life. I had strange phenomena taking place around me my entire life. So it was kind of cool and not so weird because it was on my TV. It was in my house.
Yeah.
So it was normal.
What was the first thing that you remember that was weird, and did you know it was weird at that age?
I remember being born. I cried like a baby.
Yeah,
Shook me up
that
so bad
is
I couldn't
weird.
talk for 2 years.
That is very strange. But seriously, people always ask me that, and I think that's, I'm like, oh, really, that question again? But it really is an important question. Like, what was it? The first thing.
Well, I have no memory of the first paranormal experiences because I was about 2.5, 3 years old, but I would relate to my mom, my visits from my grandmother after she passed away. And I was too young to be lying about it. Little kids obviously can lie. A 2.5-year-old can lie. I've got grandchildren and I've seen them do it, but not about something like this. They'll lie about, did you eat the candy? No, right? They'll blame it on brothers and sisters. But when it comes to things like grandma came to visit, she'd read me stories last night. My mom would say, no, remember grandma's in heaven. I know, and she misses us. And I would give my mom information, things I should not know. And so that kind of began my life in it. I have no memory of it, but my family talked about it. And my mom and aunt were really kind of two major driving forces in my life. And they had paranormal books around all the time. My dad, loves scary movies, so we'd go see scary movies together. My mom had scary books around all the time, Stephen King, Dean Koontz, real-life ghost adventures of Ed and Lorraine Warren and the Amityville Horror and D. Scott Rogo, Hans Holzer, all of these amazing authors. And so there was always something around to read, and I was never stamped down about it. It was never... No, that's not real. That's we were allowed to, I was allowed to let that be part of my world. So it always was. My first real memory of a ghost was a very basic one, and I talk about it all the time. I grew up in Medina, Illinois in the 70s, and we didn't have 200,000 TV stations and Spotify and phones and things to distract us. So we used to look out our windows, right, and watch our neighbors mow the lawn and wash their car and barbecue in their fancy hat. I still don't understand why he wears a hat for barbecuing, but we would, I was walking past this guy's house and I saw him inside his house looking out through the picture window. I took a few more steps and turned, and now he was in the middle of the yard. And as I turned and walked, I was like, I must not have seen him right the first time. He must have been outside. And I turned and he's about 5 feet away from me. Never do I hear movement, breathing, nothing. And there was nothing inherently terrifying about seeing this guy, but I knew something was wrong. And I took off running. I found out weeks later, the father of the home had passed away that Christmas. He had a massive heart attack in front of the Christmas tree, which was right in front of the window. So it's my belief that that's who I saw. Nothing inherently terrifying, but it was enough for my senses to know this is not normal. And that's what made me really uncomfortable. And I'm 55 now, and I still will take the long way around when I go visit my dad. I will not pass that house if I don't have to. It just gives me the willies, even as an adult. So, and there's no reason for it. I can't figure out why, but it makes me feel unsettled.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Tell us how did you get started on TV with all the shows and everything? What got you started there?
That's a big jump. Yeah.
Right. Well, it is and it isn't, right? You guys are all about intention and manifestation. My story starts off that way. When I was a kid, I used to sit in my garage with my tape recorder and my Kmart cassettes, and I would do radio shows, right, with my buddy Rick. He was Rick Slick, and I was Dave the Wave, and we'd introduce the music. Here's Katrina and the Waves with Walking on Sunshine, and we'd play it off the radio, and then we'd do Hardy Boys Mysteries. We'd record it and do like old radio shows. We loved all that stuff. And I used to call local radio show hosts as I was growing up, and they would take my calls, these famous big name radio show hosts. Sometimes they'd even call me back to talk more. And they were all so giving and gracious to me. And I loved radio. I wanted to do radio. And as I got older and went off to college, a ghost, I believe, delivered me to the radio station. I was living in a house right across the street from campus. And trust me, there is an end to this story. I promise you. We'll get to how I got on TV. But again, this is about putting manifestation and intention into order. I wanted to be on radio, but I was living in this house across the street from campus, and my roommates are like, Dave, you've got to get out and meet people, man. We can't be your only base of support. You've got to go meet people. And it was 1988. I go walking out the front door, and there's this cute little blonde with a ponytail and 80s short shorts walking by. And I'm like, well, this is a good start. Let's see where she goes. And I just tracked her across college campus. This was before stalking, Roger. This was when you could just walk behind people and it wasn't creepy.
Weird
And I followed her across campus to the Performing Arts Center. And I'm like, oh, let's see. And there's signs up, tryouts for the school play. I did plays. Maybe I'll join the play and get to know her that way. And just kind of followed her through, and she went up the stairs, and I followed her up the stairs, and we finally got in this long hallway, and I realized it's going to look like I'm following this woman. So I stopped, and I'm looking at the bulletin board, and I watch her go in the last door on the left. And I wait a few minutes, and I walk down there, and it says KQAL 89.5, your radio alternative, now seeking on-air talent. And I'm like, hey, how fortuitous. And I open the door, and I go in, and there's a bunch of guys standing around, and they're like, oh, are you here for the job opening? I'm like, yeah. So I get introduced, and the whole time my head's on a swivel. I'm looking for the cute blonde with the ponytail. Nowhere to be found. We talk. Yeah. Okay, I'll start training tomorrow. This is great. Hey, just curiosity, guys. I followed a blonde girl in here with a ponytail. Where did she go? And they all just stopped and looked at each other. And they're like, do you think if there was a cute girl with a ponytail, we would be standing here talking to you? And they all kind of laughed about it. And I'm like, man, I followed her in here. And there was no cute little girl with a ponytail. And we were right in my house was a center point of town. At that point, I would have seen her again. I never saw her in 2 more years of being at that college. Wow. So I don't know, something delivered me to my calling, and then made friends who went into radio. I stayed in sales for most of my life. And then one day, my buddy from college said, hey, I got this 1-hour spot on Sunday nights to fill on a local radio station. You want to do a show together? I said, sure. And he goes, what should we talk about? What's our topic? And I said, let's talk about the paranormal like we used to in college. Okay. And I just come from meeting the guys from the Ghost Hunters TV show and so many other people, Lorraine Warren, John Zaffis, all of these great people, and had gotten business cards from them. So I called them, and a lot of these people were the first guests I had on my show. I came out swinging. The first guest was the guy from Ghost Hunters, which was the #1 paranormal TV show at that time, and just kind of built from there. And having done this now almost 17 years, 18 years, it's, just a lot of doors have opened up. And because I've been kind of the unofficial of Paranormal Town, unofficial mayor here of Paranormal Town, I get connected. I know everybody, so production companies are always reaching out to me and, hey, Dave, we need somebody for this. We want to cast that. Do you know a person that fits this bill? And then finally the knock just came, and, hey, we're looking to cast this TV show for a ghost hunting show. And I said, I'm not interested. And they're like, but you don't know anything about it. I'm like, man, you guys are all the same. It's just cookie cutter crap. I don't want to just be another Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures knockoff. And they're like, sign the NDA, right? A non-disclosure agreement, and then we'll tell you more about it. And, I'm a curious guy. I'm like, all right, it costs me nothing to sign this NDA. I sign it, and they say, we want you to kind of walk in the footsteps of Dr. Hans Holzer, a name I knew very well in the paranormal. He was one of America's preeminent paranormal investigators and had a career that spanned from the 50s all the way until he passed away in the 2000s. So I was like, yes, sign me up. How do I do this? And I got signed on as the lead investigator. Cindy Keza was the medium. Shane Pittman was our kind of tech guru and my right-hand man on the show. And that just everything kind of steamrolled. But I believe it was all by setting that intention when I was a kid. So I always tell people, when they tell me, oh man, I'm just not attaining my goals, I go, when did you set the goal? And they're like, well, during COVID, it's been 2 years of me just focused. I'm like, I started setting the goal to get into radio when I was 6 years old, 7 years old. I didn't get into radio till I was 38. So that's quite a span. Sometimes you get there, you just don't necessarily get there on your time frame, but you have to be open for it when the opportunity arises. You have to watch the signs, especially if they're cute blondes with a ponytail and 80s short shorts.
Exactly. That's like when it makes me think of Jessica Simpson. Those boots are made. These boots are made for what? Do you remember that first time we met? Roger's like, I was like, what's one of your favorite songs? And he's like, this song, these boots are made for walking. Jessica's. I was like, what? And then he admitted to me that was his celebrity crush. That's what I got out of that whole story. No, I'm kidding. No, it's
Blonde,
a great story.
short shorts, boots.
Sure.
What? How'd it go wrong?
Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, you have a type, Roger.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but that's great, and it's great that you knew so from such a young age. That was me with being a lawyer, and I just manifested. I mean, I knew that's going to happen. That's what's going to happen in my life, and it was 6th grade, I think. Just knew. Did you know, Matt?
Actually, it's funny. Like listening to Dave tell a story. Mine's very similar. I was obsessed with the old radio shows because when we would travel across country to my family in Virginia, which is also kind of where I had my start with the paranormal, because I had an aunt who lived out there, and Virginia is just thick with it. People up in the Appalachian Mountains, and it's all about all sorts of weird stuff going on up there. And she 100% believed that her house was haunted. She would tell all these stories. But along those road trips, we'd stop at Cracker Barrel and get the cassette tapes of The Shadow, which was
Shadow,
my favorite.
Right. And the Green Hornet,
Suspense.
The Lone Ranger. I used to get all those, the old radio classics. Yeah.
And so I started making my own cassette tapes of doing the same kind of thing when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and recording the same kind of shows. And
so
playing
cool.
all the characters as myself, because no one else cared about this stuff. So I was doing that stuff forever. Yeah.
So I made cassette tapes. Y'all want to know? Did you make cassette tapes?
I'm
Y'all want me
sure
to
they
tell
were
you
just
them?
recorded off the FM radio.
No, I
okay.
made them. And you want to guess?
Oh,
the
I'm
top?
scared.
No, I was preaching.
Oh,
I was the
actually, I did know
preacher.
that.
An evangelist.
So yes,
Yeah.
I was. I'd be like, now open your Bibles to, and I would have
Whole
full.
sermon?
And then my friends that came over, I'd be like, we're gonna have church. So and then they'd be like, when are we gonna
That
have
was the
lunch?
last time they came over.
It was. Did you make cassette tapes?
Meanwhile,
Roger?
Roger was making cassettes, but they were all mixtapes, right, Roger?
Mine were mixtapes. That's right.
That's true.
exactly.
I believe
That's
it.
right.
Record. I have to record them off the FM
Sometimes
radio.
When We Touch by Dan Hill. That'll get her.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine were preaching. It's interesting that y'all are so. I didn't have a clue. I'm clearly not a preacher.
I mean, I could hear it.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
That would be you up there.
You need to
yeah,
find
would
those.
be.
You need to go dig those
I
up.
need
if
to
you
find
can.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think of you, Dave, when I watch all your shows, and I do watch a lot of your shows once I found them. And I do not watch a lot of shows on like YouTube or anything like that, unless it's like a movie. Well, you have movies too, but like, one that's just come out or been released. I just don't watch, and you'll watch reels and all the shorts and all that stuff. I just don't do it as much. And once I found your show, I really like it. And so I'm not going to waste my time if I don't. So, well, and obviously it's very popular. What I noticed about you is you're very honest, and you are going to tell, you're going to get the history, but you're also going to approach things from a neutral viewpoint. You haven't already totally discounted it, it seems to me, but you haven't bought in because everybody's so excited, and it's the kind of the group think we're all excited and we want to believe this. We're going to believe this. We're going to find a way to make this true. So tell us, if you would, a time where you thought you weren't going to believe something, or you thought this is, I'm not sure, this is hokey, I don't think I'm going to buy into this, and then you got caught by surprise and realized that somebody, maybe there was a ghost, or there was something haunted going on. Do you have a story like that?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I started doing the radio show, I had experiences, but I was still questioning everything throughout my life. You know, what was that really? And the reason I talk about it this way is I always say you've got to realize that a lot of your memories of youth are tainted, and you may have amazing memories of a certain thing and remember how amazing it was, and then as you grow older and revisit it, you realize how far off you were. So I always question the experiences I had growing up, wondering if I misunderstood or misinterpreted those to be paranormal. And to give you a quick idea about perception, when I grew up, and Roger, you were saying you'd watch shows with your kids on Saturday mornings and watch all the paranormal shows. I grew up watching the Croft Super shows. So I grew up loving and getting up super early Saturday mornings to watch the original Land of the Lost.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the Land of the Lost, and I was blown away by the fact that there's this rift in time, and there's aliens and dinosaurs. It was everything that a kid could want. And I was so excited when probably around 2006-ish, maybe 2007, they released the entire series on DVD, right? And I bought it, and I brought it home, and I got all my kids set up that night on Saturday, and I made popcorn, and we put on the big screen, and I popped on Land of the Lost, and out comes the credits and the opening, and one by one, my kids slowly got up and just walked out of the room. By the end of the first 10 minutes, my final one was my little daughter, Ripley, and she just stood up and put her hand on my cheek and kind of shook her head and walked away. And I thought, and I understood why. The show was horrible, but I had such vivid, loving memories of this show being so incredible. So that shows you how fallible our brains are and how we can pump things up. That's another reason why we make that call when we've had one too many drinks to the ex, because we're only remembering some of the good points, right? We're forgetting all the horrible stuff that broke us up, and we're only remembering those good moments. So you have to question your own memories and thoughts. And I believe that's an important part of this whole experience. So I've just been very cautious with what goes on. So I want to ask the questions. I want to hear your story. Whether I believe it or not is irrelevant. Why you believe it is intriguing to me, and I think an important element to why this phenomenon might be happening to you. So I've always tried to come at it with a sense of respect for the people. And then once I've heard their story, can we corroborate it with history? Can we look into history and find stories that match up with what they're having, who this spirit might be? And then once we do find that, what can we do to make this spirit happy? So that's kind of doing it on TV. Now, I remember going out to Warwick, Rhode Island back in 2006 to do my first paranormal conference. I set it up at the hotel, like a Hampton Inn or something in Warwick, right near the Ghost Hunters headquarters. All the people that attended were going to get to go do a tour of their headquarters. We were going to get to meet some of the cast members who were going to come sign autographs, and we get to ghost hunt in the hotel. They were giving us a few rooms that were reportedly haunted. And I had no belief in these stories. They were so flaky and weird. But one of my favorite things about it was you could tell that there were some husbands there begrudgingly that were there to placate their wives and their wives' interest in the paranormal. So they were just there. And this one guy comes down about an hour into the investigation, and he's rubbing his throat. Oh, my throat. And I'm like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And he goes, I don't know, man. I got to tell you, I walked into that room on the 3rd floor, and I felt like I was choking. It was the weirdest. I panicked. I felt like I was like drowning or choking. And I said, okay. That's weird. And I didn't know what was going on or what he was experiencing, because in the 3rd floor, we heard that somebody had just passed away in their sleep. They had a heart attack, and that was it. So made no sense to me of why that happened. And About 15, 20 minutes later, another guy comes down rubbing his throat, and he's complaining of the same thing. And the night clerk hears this story, and he comes over and listens, and the other guy comes over and he goes, that's exactly what happened to me, man. I felt like I was gargling with like thick salt water, and I was afraid I was going to drown in it. And this guy just starts shaking his head, the night clerk, and I go, what's going on? He goes, that third floor is not where the guy had the heart attack. That's on the first floor. The third floor, a person in there took their own life by slitting their throat. Then they panicked and picked up the phone. I was the one that got the call that night, and I thought that they were pranking because all I heard was this gurgling and weird noises, and I ended up going up to check on the guy, and he had passed away. So these two guys both had this choking, drowning feeling, no clue that that's even what took place in that room, and in two separate groups. But my favorite part was these two wives come down and find their husbands, and these guys are rattled, and they're like, what's going on? And we tell them, and these wives are so pissed at their husband. And they're like, this is my trip. I went, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you really yelling at your husband because he had a paranormal experience? Well, yeah, this is my trip. I wanted to have it. And I go, well, I think if you keep yelling, you'll know what it feels like to get choked. And, we all kind of had a laugh. And I'm like, you're mad at him. And they were like, it opened up the guys. Suddenly they were much more interested in the paranormal. So these ladies, I saw them for years at other conferences because they got their husbands indoctrinated. But going into these places and having an experience like that, where I'm thinking, how convenient the hotel we're at just happens to have ghost stories and just happens to have these weird deaths, and then two people back to back come down with the same experience. And going to Rolling Hills Asylum in East Bethany, New York, and hearing all these claims after it's been on Ghost Hunters. Now, I like Jay and Grant. I trusted Jay and Grant, but you also wonder, you have to question how much of what we see on TV is real.
Right.
So going there, is it going to be that crazy? And I remember cracking open my recorder the first time, and I'm walking around with my friend Bree and the owner at the time, and I crack open the recorder and I just start doing a couple of quick EVPs, and then I go, all right, while it's still running, I'm like, all right, let's go upstairs and check a different area, and then we got to get going. And I play back the recording that night, and you hear me say, yeah, let's go upstairs, and then we got to get going. And I have this ghostly voice go, please don't leave, right on my recording. That shook my world, because for the first time I heard something interact with me. So that would be one of those. I think maybe that's why EVP is my favorite form of investigating, is because I feel it's so immediate.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I will say, I mean, with watching the shows on TV, I will say you're probably one of my more favorite. You are my favorite, just because you don't go at it as a, oh, well, look at this, something touched me, or, you go to it as like, you try to kind of debunk it a little bit without calling out people for being kind of fake. Just two-part question. What's some of the best fakes you've seen out there? And second, have you ever fallen for one of those fakes?
To answer the second question first, I don't believe I've ever fallen for one of the fakes, but I may have, and they just never owned up to the fact that they did something. I think one of the more fascinating stories, it was in season 1 of the Holzer Files. We investigate this story of ocean-born Mary. And it's a fascinating story, right? It's got everything you could want. It starts off with a pirate ship boarding another ship. And this pirate makes himself, he comes aboard. He's this big, fancy kind of Johnny Depp kind of flashy pirate who, when he boards these ships, he dresses all in red with a big red hat and a plume on it, just like Matt uses when he goes out barbecuing, right? So
I don't have the plume yet.
He dresses all in red and goes on the other ship, and usually they'll take what they want and probably kill you. But as he's on board, he hears a baby cry, and he stops his men and he goes, is there a baby on this boat? And they said, we'll find out. And they're like, yeah. And the mother and father are cowering. This was their safe passage to the new world. And they're terrified, and they're afraid this pirate's going to kill them or kill the baby. And instead, the pirate said, have you named the baby? And they said, not yet. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, if you name the baby after my mother, Mary, we'll just take a few of your trinkets and we'll send you on your way. And everybody on board is like, sounds good to me. Her name is Mary. This is all true, this part of the story. He then goes back on a ship and he comes back and he gives some gifts, some jewelry, some fabric, which was, big gifts back then, to this girl so that she would have them as she grew up. And then as the legend goes, this pirate would come to visit Mary as she grew up. He was almost grooming her to be his bride at some point, which is creepy considering he met her when she was a baby. And she eventually falls in love with him. And when he dies, she buries him on the property. And he used to bury his treasures on her property. So this guy, Gussie Roy, ended up buying the house, heard the story, told these stories, and he'd rent you a spade for 50 cents an hour. You could go out and dig in his yard, and if you found something, you just had to split it with him. So whatever was out there, you get to split it. Meanwhile, he's racking in 50 cents, which doesn't sound like a lot to us now, but that was a week's wage back then, right? And he's got 8 idiots out in his yard with spades trying to dig up pirate treasure. So just a remarkable story. And then there would be these sightings of Mary walking through the house and on the borderline of the property. Well, Hans Holzer was called to come corroborate this story and met with Gussie Roy and Gussie's mom, and something was off, and Hans Holzer just couldn't put his finger on what it was, but he knew something was off. And we went there, and I'd heard this story before, and I didn't know all the intricacies of it, but I was like, man, this is cool. You got pirates and this unrequited love and buried treasure and a pirate buried under the hearth of this home, and it's continued to be haunted. But Hans Holzer would never sign off on it being haunted. He said, I believe there's spirits here, but things aren't adding up for me. So he never gave it the official Holzer stamp of approval. And we got to go back in and examine it and open the case. Well, it turns out that the house, ocean-born Mary's house, was not hers. She never lived there. As a matter of fact, the only tie to it is her wealthy son owned that house. She maybe visited twice. She lived in another house across town with her other son. That house burned to the ground. So there was no ocean-born Mary house. So that's interesting. Then we find out from people that Gussie Roy, the guy that was doing this, he would dress his mother up in white outfits and make her walk the perimeter of the yard at night so people would see this ghostly visage, because then they would come to pay to see and hear the ghost stories. And while he would tell the ghost stories, mother would walk past the windows upstairs all dressed in white and freak everybody out. So that was one of the biggest frauds. What's so remarkable, though, is in doing the show, we uncovered the real ocean-born Mary house. It was the house she spent most of her life in and had been there, and they moved it board by board, brick by brick, and it was in a totally different state. And the owners are historians, and they said, as long as we'll let you in and you can investigate, as long as you never reveal where the house is, because we don't want people knocking on the door. And we're like, that's totally fine. That's great. And they gave us access. And that was amazing. And we go in and they're like, some things happen. I do feel Mary's here with us, but I feel she's happy. We're like, that's great. And we had just a remarkable experience with that. And I will tell you, one of the weird asides that never made it to the episode, the day before we got there, the owners were like, we almost canceled letting you guys come here because something strange started happening. This cardinal kept slamming into our windows like it was trying to get in, and then it flew around to the other side and it was slamming into the windows. And they're like, I have no idea why this cardinal is trying to get into our home. And it wasn't until halfway through the episode that it struck me, and I'm like, cardinals are these big red birds, right? And we found Mary was the spirit of the pirate kind of trying to make his way back into her story. This representation, and birds are known to be representative of spirits, right? And so many people believe in that. So I just thought that was an interesting what if element to it. You can't put thumbtack in it and say that's definitely paranormal, but it was an interesting element. And we just had a great time, but revealing the truth. This story was such a twisty matrix puzzle that we had to work our way through. So to me, that was one of the biggest falsities that had been put out there. And we found the truth, and I was very pleased and proud of that episode, and had just such a great time filming it. And you just never knew what the next day was going to open up for you. And I asked a few of the right questions, and we found the house. So that to me was one of the best examples of fake turning into fiction, or I'm sorry, fake turning into reality.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
You know, when I had COVID, lovely COVID, we'd been at the Brown
We were at
Hotel.
the Brown Palace in Denver, Colorado.
Have you been there, Dave? The
Okay.
Brown?
No.
The history there, check out the history. I actually bought the book from the gift shop just because, you know, me and books. If there's a book, I'm going to buy it. Yeah. And so it's fascinating. So the history of it is there was a triangle love situation going there. Long story. It wasn't even a long story. One of them ends up killing the other one in the bar. The man kills the other guy. And so supposedly it's quite a haunted hotel.
Quite a bit of stuff happening around there.
And I've seen stuff there, not just when I had COVID. I definitely went cuckoo when I had COVID. And I had
saw
to
it
be
the first time we were there. There was no COVID there.
The first time I saw things, and it wasn't. Here's my two-part. It was interesting. I wondered if you'd ever been there, just because the story is fascinating. It's what do you call it? It's like open in the middle. It's all the rooms it's like square, and the rooms just go up one after the other, and then it's open, and you can look all the way down. So they have pictures of like presidents being there, and they'll be on a certain floor, and then the people will fill all the areas watching. And so there's numerous stories of different things that happened. It was a society. They still have tea and things like that. And so I'd seen quite a few things, but it was nothing like what they said. So what I wanted to know, one, and I might not get to the number two question, but a lot of people will look things up before they go to, for instance, here, the Goatman Bridge. I'd never heard anything about it, so I try to go cold. I try to go not knowing anything. I won't look it up. I don't want to know the story. I don't want to know the history. I want to know it afterwards because I'm fascinated by it. When we went to Savannah, you were great. The other Josh guy was great at telling the history of and just we'll give a plug for it later. But Dave does a bunch of tours to places all over the world, and people should sign up for those. And I went to just a short one in Savannah, Georgia, which was wonderful. And so we would kind of know the history, but how do you feel about that? Do you feel it's better to know the history a little bit before you go, or just go and see what you sense, to see what you pick up, and not know the history and then get the history afterwards?
It's a double-edged sword. You as a medium, obviously, I want to keep you in the dark, because I would have a hard time. I love you, Michelle. I think you're amazing. I think you're a great medium. If I give you a book about this place and we walk in and you start telling me about the ghosts, I'm going to have a hard time believing that you're picking it up psychically.
Right. And just let me interject one thing.
In me,
yeah, and I would have a hard time saying it, because I'd be like, oh, well, that's, of course, she just read it in a book. I mean, that's dumb.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, as a medium, you're probably then in your own head thinking, am I really picking this up, or am I, because I know the story, am I just seeing those scenes play out in my head because I just read about it? So for the medium, I always encourage you don't have and people, you're probably not going to love this. As a matter of fact, I encourage the medium to not speak when they come on an investigation. I think the best thing you could do as a medium, for me, is to do a walkthrough of the house and take notes. Unless there's something really dangerous, something that you think, I just have to alert Dave to, but I don't want to know specifics, because I think what makes that type of investigation even better is you go into a room and you write in your book, I'm seeing a little boy and he's got a red rubber ball and he's standing in the corner kind of looking at me, and then he bounced the ball a couple times, and he just kind of, like, he was almost surprised that I could see him. And that's your notes. And then I go into the room and I'm doing an EVP session and I catch boing, boing, boing. And I'm like, did you guys, it sounds like a kid bouncing a ball. Then we read through your psychic notes and you saw, suddenly your evidence and my evidence match up, making corroborating evidence, which is a much more powerful tool. So that's what I think is important. And what's so great about doing the Holzer Files and Ghost of Devil's Perch with Cindy is I knew enough to be dangerous as the lead investigator, but I didn't know all the story. Cindy knew nothing. And a lot of what she picked up on filled the holes, the gaps in the story that I had. And there were times, and I felt bad, and I've told this to Cindy, I would sit there listening and taking notes as she was picking up on things psychically. And I had Holzer's file in front of me, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, she's nuts. She's got to be the worst medium I've ever seen in my life. She's not getting anything right. Nothing right about this. She maybe got 2 things off of this entire list. And then they're like, all right. Obviously, we're not going to tell her we think you think she's bad. Let's just. So then the next day I'd go sit down with the historian, and they'd be like, all right, Dave, we have an hour with the historian. Make sure you ask these 4 questions. The rest just be you. Ask whatever questions you have. And I'd figure out a way to ask their questions. But then if I had my notes, I'd start flipping through the notes, and I'm like, all right, so Michelle, I've got to ask you real quickly. Our medium was here last night, and she picked up on, I know this is going to sound weird, she picked up on giraffes and what looks like a train car with animals in it. Does this make any sense? And Michelle would look at me and go, do you know that the owner was actually a conductor of the circus train for Barnum and Bailey Circus? And his favorite animal was the giraffe. He was that was the car right behind the locomotive. And he would always, while he was running the deal, he would go out and feed the giraffes. So this crazy stuff she would have no way of knowing. Or the historian would go, let me go look at something. And then they'd flip through the book and find this information for me that Cindy would have no way of knowing. So she would fill in. I stopped questioning after like episode 3 her abilities, because she was so on point with things that ended up opening up the case for us and opening up the story to let us know we were really tapping in. I give a lot of credit, but she had to go in completely blind, and it was a tough job for her, because Shane and I, we got to hang out together all the time when we weren't on set, and I had that brother in arms to be hanging with. Cindy was always alone because they didn't want us accidentally talking about the case in front of her or saying anything about the case. So we were asked to stay separate. So we might have one field trip together a week where we'd go to a movie, but we didn't talk business. We just, hey, let's go to the movie. All right, what do you want to see? Let's go see them. Okay. And we'd go see the movie, and then we'd all go back and maybe have a burger and then go to our rooms. But that was the extent of our interaction. And we were out there for 3-4 months filming, and we'd never hung out and talked because we couldn't. We had to stay separated. So I think for mediums, it's great to keep them in the dark. For myself, I like to know a little bit so that I can try to engage the spirits, right? If I'm there and I know that these 5 people died in the house, but I don't know what spirit is making themselves known, at least I have a starting point. So that helps me as a non-sensitive to try to start to weed through the pile of debris of information and see what I can find. So, you know, that's kind of multifaceted on it, you know, way of looking at how to investigate and use a medium. But you just have to be cautious and be careful of how you go through the information.
And I totally agree with everything you said, because, and Roger will know this, when we go anywhere, I'll be like, I don't want to look at it. And I do that with pretty much everything. I don't want to know when people come to get readings. I don't want to know anything, because mainly my credibility, but also I then might not say something, because I'll be like, well, that's obvious, because you just read that in an article. So I don't want to hold myself back of saying those sorts of things. So no, I totally agree. And when we were in Savannah, I kept very quiet. When we would go up and you would be getting all your stuff, and I was taking notes. I was looking to see, it's back there, but in my purse, I still have it, a little journal. And you couldn't see to write. And somebody, you can answer this if it's true or not. I thought I read somewhere that you shouldn't automatic write. I wasn't automatically writing. I just couldn't see. But I would write down everything, all the impressions I was getting. And I don't think we ever compared. Shane and I compared one thing, and he was like, oh, wait, you got that? And it was something that was never said. So I totally agree with everything you just said. And I appreciate the validation, because I thought, well, and I like knowing that there's a reason for the others, someone doing a different job where they might want to know the history. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Right? And as far as
Right. And getting the history afterward, Cindy was always like you. She was psyched to go with me to learn the history.
Right.
So she could see what she got right. Or afterwards, she'd be like, Dave, what did the historian say? And I'm like, ooh, I can't tell you yet. I'll tell you in the meeting today when we film it. Because they wanted her general reactions. They didn't want me spoiling something and saying, all right, Michelle, I'll tell you, but Roger wore a ball cap. You were picking up on the ball cap? Roger, where's the ball cap? Because then you're like, oh my God. And then we get in front of the cameras and none of us are actors. And I'm like, Cindy, Roger wore the ball cap. And she'd be like, oh my God, Roger? That's so crazy. And so they didn't want her to have to act, and so it was just, we kept everything separate.
Keep it
and
real.
it was better that way. And on events, to be honest with you, I try to warn people that are sensitive. I'm like, enjoy this investigation. Please don't make it about you unless one of us is in danger. Because I've been on investigations with people that are sensitives and everything is, oh my God, there's something here and it's pushing on me. And it takes everybody out of their experience and it all becomes about Michelle and Michelle seeing this and Michelle seeing that. And at the end of it, none of us had an experience because we were so enthralled with Michelle or irritated with Michelle. So I tell the mediums, just try to, I know it's exciting, just so you don't piss everybody off.
Right.
But, if you hear people saying, if you hear, Michelle, if you hear Dave and Shane over in the corner going, did you see that little girl ghost? And you, guys, come here, look at my notes. I picked up on this little girl ghost. That's okay. That kind of interaction is great as long as it doesn't become the focal point of the investigation. It shouldn't hang on that because for most of us, we can't see or sense. And I still am a skeptic enough that I want to also have my own experience, but I'm not going to hinge everything on what you just said.
Right. And also because it's not it was just being polite for me, right? I remember saying to you, I'm there to learn. I'm there to learn what y'all do, not what I do. I mean, I didn't even know necessarily that they took mediums with them all the time. I mean, I was learning
well, then
so
we
much
have
about
we have guests like Alyssa, who was on the trip with us, remember? And she was overwhelmed and started sobbing. I'm not upset with those moments. It wasn't about look at me.
Right.
She was so overwhelmed with grief from what she was picking up on, and it affected her. And that's powerful for people around. And I'm fine with that. So if she's watching, and I know she loves you, I just didn't want her to think I'm singling her out doing that. I'm talking about other people that have been on trips that turn it all into them. And don't worry, I've crossed the ghost over. Well, don't do that until the end of this event because I paid the ghost to be here for 2 days, right? So.
The ghost has been here hundreds of years. You can wait 2 more days, 2 hours,
That's
or whatever to cross the ghost. Do you want to talk about the book a little bit?
Sure. Actually, and your other side book here, A Teen's Guide to Ghost Hunting and the Paranormal. Actually,
Let me interject one thing.
Go for it.
It's not just the teen's guide. I know that's what he's going to say. So it's for everyone, but the publisher wanted to let people know it was also teens could get it to broaden the market. Am I right, Dave? Yeah,
which actually shrank the market for us. They tried to, Twilight was all the rage, and they're like, "Oh, sparkling vampires and teenagers. Let's make this book for teenagers," and it killed our market. But it's written for everybody. I just had to go back in and tweak it a little bit because I knew teens were now going to be targeted. So I did a little bit more on protection and a chapter on demonology that we had not included before.
I love it. I've read it twice. It's good.
Yeah, and that was actually my question is because I know y'all did your show last night, Paranormal 16. You were talking about being an empath and empathy and everything. And then you were talking about, feeling and seeing things from an early age. When you go to these places, what do you do to protect yourself?
It kind of varies on the location. Sometimes you hear these dark energies and, there's this, and it's an angry demon, or I really go in almost stripped of everything. I might have some bracelets on just to kind of try to keep like kind of a bubble around me a little bit, the gemstones. I have a cross that I carry with me a lot. It's a blessed cross, but I also don't flash it. It's not like I'm wearing it because I've always thought to myself, and I don't know where you are on this, Roger, but if Dave and Michelle walk into the haunted place and you're a ghost, and Michelle's clutching her Bible and her holy water and her crucifix and is kind of putting off mixed messages about being communicated with. And Dave is just open to it. Are you going to waste what little energy you have trying to communicate with a person who probably doesn't want to really hear from you? Or are you going to go to the one that's open? So I do these things, but I don't set it to the intention of nothing can communicate with me. I want, actually, I've taken it as a gift when something negative happens to me. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, are you crazy? I'm like, no, I think it's a gift that the ghost has given me. The ability to connect in that moment. I've been knocked on my butt twice. Once split my back open. It was so violent. You know, I went into the hospital during Ghost Devil's Perch thinking I had something rupture inside me. And I walked into a place memory of a gentleman being shot. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, they attacked. I don't feel like they attacked. I feel like they were allowing me to have that moment to see or feel or sense what they went through. And then that allowed me to connect better. I can now understand, Roger. I understand why you're upset, man. You know, they turned against you and she shot you in cold blood. I understand. And now I know your story, and I'll tell people so that they know. And I would try to show empathy to the spirits and give their voice back. So to me, that was really important. So I don't go in shielded particularly well because I want to open up for the experience. When I leave a location, I will do a clearing prayer, and I pray for the location as well. But I'll say something like, Lord, I just invite you into this building. I ask that the Holy Spirit move through every room, baptizing the walls in the blood of Jesus Christ, to bring all lost spirits home, to open the light, bring forth their friends, their lovers, their relatives, their pets, to help them ease their transition. And Lord, I ask that the spirits that stay here, you bind them in a thorny hedge of protection so that they can do no harm. And I ask that you now break any connections these spirits may have made with me. I ask that you clear me, my mind, body, and soul, return my energy back to myself, and leave their energy here. I pray this in your name. Amen. And that's kind of my long-winded prayer, but I do that at every location, trying to help the spirits first, then I ask for help from me. And then I'm cautious. But before I walk in the front door, I'll say another clearing prayer because I don't want to bring things home to my wife and kids. I try to avoid that. That's an important part of it. I understand it's a job that I do, but I don't need to endanger them by being open and not paying attention to what could come with me.
Right.
Very good.
We don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to make sure we get in about your trips. Can you tell us a little bit about the trips that you do? And because they're so great, everyone listening, I just want y'all to know that. Yeah, I've been on one, and my friend Lexi and I are going to England. And so, I'm really looking forward to that. Lexi Cologne, well, many of you know.
If I can mention real quickly on the book, you know, there are people that are like, Dave, why would you write a book for teens? That's so irresponsible. We shouldn't let kids go in. Man, most of you had your first experience when you were a child or as a teen. Wouldn't it have been great to have a book to help you understand what you were dealing with? Because maybe the adults in your life didn't know and didn't have the answers. So I stand behind this book 100%, that it's written for everyone, but I think it's a good guide for teens and people that are just having an awakening and being brought into the paranormal field. The book is available on my website, paranormal60.com. They can go there, click on the store tab, and scroll down. You'll see my book, pictures, all the cool stuff there, bracelets, and our t-shirts that we have. And then we have trips as well. If you go on the paranormal60.com and click events or the trips tab, you'll find all the places I'll be. And I will be out in Texas, Austin, Texas later this year. You're going to be one of my special guests as we talk about hauntings in Texas, along with Nikki Folsom and Greg Lawson. And then my boys from the Paranormal 60 are going to do a talk with me. So we're going to have a great time out at GalaxyCon, and people can find tickets at galaxycon.com. So if you're a nerd like me and you love Star Wars, Star Trek, anime, sci-fi, horror movies, GalaxyCon's the place for you. They have stars and celebrities from around the world come in to do these things. So it's going to be great. But I've got a lot of cool trips that are coming up. We still have some spots open if you want to go with me to England in September and get to tour and see some of the most haunted sites and haunted castles. And then there's a 3-day paranormal conference in England, and we get to attend that as well. The Festival of the Unexplained. It's going to be an amazing time. I'm doing an event in New Orleans later on this year. So again, all the information is up at paranormal60.com under the events tab.
The New Orleans one's the one that you.
Yeah, that would be fun too. Because I was looking at that. It's a long event too. Is it like 11 or 12 days, something like that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of bang for your buck. We're gonna be investigating stories of ghosts and witches and vampires and the southern werewolf, the Rougarou.
Yep.
And we'll be just kind of steeped in these places and going to see some of the most amazing cemeteries and crypts and voodoo history. And it's really going to be an amazing immersive experience. So if you want to go overseas with me to England, there are tickets still available for that. If you want to stay closer to home and go to New Orleans and have some fun, there's tickets available for that as well, and so many other great conferences that I'll be a part of throughout the year.
Nice.
That's great. And I think that we were going to get some books for SoulTopia, but y'all order through, go to Dave's website, but we'll talk about that later because this is a really good book. And we don't have enough time to ask him your question about, you're always talking about photographs and
orbs and photographs. You got 3 minutes. You want to talk about them? Orbs and
you're
photographs.
You're pretty
I'm not a fan of
skeptical
orbs.
too. Roger's that way too. He's skeptical.
Because I can debunk 95% of orbs.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there aren't a few pictures that I find interesting, and that's the best I'll give you is interesting. But listen, if it's a self-sustaining energy, and I, with my physical eye, have seen light forms move through a room. I've seen sparkles, just like Tinkerbell blasting her wand. I've seen sparkles in the middle of the air, and have been with people that have eyewitnesses. But photographs, if it truly is a life-sustaining energy form, why do you need a flash to see it?
Oh,
So,
good point.
well, there's no flash in that room, and it's on, but there's not a flash, but there is a night vision cannon
Yeah.
lighting up that room on TV, and a piece of dust floating very close to. Look, my finger's not giant, it's just closer to the lens. So an orb, a little fleck of dust, you're not going to notice back here. If it zips in front of my camera lens, it's going to look massive. And because it's so close, it's kind of see-through, so it looks more ghostly. I'm not a big fan of orbs. I'm not a big fan of those little particulates zipping around. It's bugs, it's moisture, it's dust. And in most pictures, you're in a basement, an attic, or outside when you capture them. That should be a big telltale sign.
Right.
I'm, again, not totally throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but I'm pretty hard-pressed. Twice on Holzer Files, we actually showed an orb as part of our evidence, but it was in corroboration with other elements. One, we caught the sound of footsteps going through this room, and you see the shadow trackers on the floor light up as this orb swoops down and flies over it. A dust orb is not going to light up a shadow tracker. So that was intriguing, and that you could hear footsteps in time with it. I can't say that this was an energy form. I don't know what it was, but it happened in conjunction. And then when we were on the ship and you saw the light orb come shuddering through the room, and as it passes a hammock, the hammock starts swinging. That's an interesting element, because would the hammock have started swinging even if that dust orb didn't go past it? I don't know, but I can say that something shuddered past it and all of a sudden it started swinging. So those are interesting to me.
Yeah.
The big problem I have with pictures is you show me a picture and you're like, Dave, look at this picture. Is that a ghost? And what you've done is you've taken a 2,000 piece puzzle, you've flipped it upside down in broken pieces. You're not letting me see the box, and you're picking one piece at random and handing it to me and going, is that a ghost? I don't know. I don't know what's behind you, casting maybe a reflection in front of you, making it look like a ghost. I don't know if there's a light source in front of you and you've cropped the picture so I can't see the light source that may be hitting your lens and causing a refraction, making something look like a ghostly light. I would need full view of the room and know where the lights are, what kind of light fixtures you have, where the windows are, all of this to be able to even start to assess it. And then I still couldn't definitively say that's a ghost.
Yeah.
So I'm very cautious in the evidence, and you'll see that on the shows like Holzer Files and Ghost to Devil's Perch. Some stuff we threw out, other stuff we're like, I have no other explanation for this other than that's paranormal. So
Nice.
Well, we do have some prizes, and we have do we have time?
Yeah, let's go ahead and ask him.
Dave, can you hang with us like a couple more minutes, or do you need to shoot off before?
I give you 4 more minutes, and then I got to get rolling because I've got another interview here.
Why don't you go ahead then and tell us tell us about everything that you have going on, and tell us your website and stuff like that, and then you can hop off so that we don't keep you too long. If you want to.
Well, I have the Paranormal 60 network. You can listen to my show and some other great programs that I have as a part of it. So Mondays, you can, if you subscribe to the Paranormal 60 on whatever app you listen to your podcasts, Mondays you'll get New England Legends with Jeff Belanger and Ray Auger. Then Tuesdays, you get the Paranormal 60. Then Wednesdays, you'll get the Searchers podcast with Shane Pittman, Ray Causey, and Josh Purvis. Thursdays, you'll get the audio version of Paranormal 60 News. Friday, you get Real Ghost Stories from Anne and Renata from Australia. So we've got a nice little network of fun paranormal shows, intriguing different looks at different elements of the paranormal. You can find us live on YouTube Mondays and Wednesday nights. Pardon me. And then you could just everything and all my information's up at paranormal60.com. And if you have stories or things you'd like to share with me or evidence, you can always email me, dave@paranormal60.com. And I look forward to seeing you again here soon, Michelle and Roger. Hope we get to meet you on one of these trips soon. And for all of your listeners, thank you for allowing me in and giving me some time to hear my stories tonight. So thank you all.
Yes,
Thanks so much for taking the time. And we know you have some other shows that you're on tonight. We're about to talk about you behind your back because we're going to ask questions for people to win prizes. But thank you so much for being on, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah.
You got it. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, Dave. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dave. All right. Did you have a question you want to ask for this giveaway?
You know that it's you're the question guy.
We just did. All right, I'll tell you what. So you actually have 2 things to give away tonight, right?
Mm-hmm. I do.
All right, so question 1, okay? Liz, tell us, and by the way, we are watching onto the on YouTube, SoulTopia YouTube, so that's where you have to answer. Tell us any one piece of work, TV show, podcast, books, anything that Dave has been a part of.
Oh, you better watch because they're going to get that fast.
Right? I was trying to make it easy. Anything but SoulWhat. SoulWhat doesn't count.
It should.
It should count, but we're not going to count that one. SoulWhat doesn't count. You got to come up with something on your own. Yeah. So that's question 1.
What are we giving away?
Which one you want to give?
Well, let's give away the little aliens. And, their earrings. There's an alien earrings, and spaceship.
All right, so Leslie got it. Teen's Other Side book.
Leslie, how many? Okay. Doesn't she have like multiple?
All right.
Piercings?
So here's question number 2.
This is cute.
And anybody can answer but Leslie. Leslie, you're Leslie, disqualified on this one.
Leslie, you can never answer again because you're too smart. I'm just kidding. I love you. Okay, this is a shungite plate to protect the back of your phone or wherever you want to put it. Okay, a little plate.
What's the most important show happening this weekend?
In the whole world. Or Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, because it's very important to us. Right, Matt?
Yes. Yeah, very important. Also be very important when we've gotten through it and we've had a successful show. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to it.
I know. We got to get it. We're going to go down on Thursday. We're getting everything set up for Thursday, so we'll be ready for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And Leslie's going, so she's just going really.
Yeah, Leslie was like, I should have answered the second question.
Knows.
Angie got it.
Angie got it.
And it's tied. It's the International Divination event. The International Divination event. Mm-hmm. We still have some tickets that you can get. You can even get a day pass. So, like, if you're like, I want to go see Mary Kay Greer on Friday speak. You can do that. You can actually buy.
Let me tell you, you do, y'all. She's doing something she's never done, and
it's a lot of fun.
God, it better. She's going to be great, but it needs to go great, and Matt's making sure that it does, right?
I already have.
And so he's on it, and so, but she's combining. You heard it here, the archetypes and tarot with the world famous boy band or BKS. Yeah. And I am now into their music because those guys are super talented. It's unbelievable how talented they are.
Korean, I believe, South Korean.
South Korea.
South
Yes.
Korean.
And the interesting, they all have to do service in the military.
Yep.
And so now they're doing their, I believe their year, and they put it off for a little while for them, but they finally, you have to do it before you're 30. And so they're all doing that. So everyone does service to their country, kind of like Lebanon, and doesn't Israel do that too?
I believe so.
Yeah.
yes.
So, so I'm a fan now. She is, but those are two things that make her, that I know of, and I don't know her that well yet, but make her eyes just light up. And she is talking tarot and talking BKS, and I was like, why not? Why don't we put those two things together?
There you go.
Then we have Devin Hunter putting two things together that he likes: crystals and houseplants. And so he's a keynote speaker. And then Brandy Michelle is going to tell us how to read from your cards to know the motives and what's behind what your friends or people in your life, what they're doing. Why do certain people behave in certain ways? So it's kind of profiling, but she didn't use that word. And she's been a criminal crime analysis investigator for many years. She's a great speaker. And then we have our keynote artist that's going to do a lot of fun things with you too, Jamie Sawyer. It's a good group. It's a great group of people.
Looking
coming.
forward to it.
Yeah, so y'all, if you want to get one of those day passes, or if you do not live here and you listen to this, get the Zoom.
That's right.
Not everything's on there. If it's something where, we're sitting around making collage, that is one of the things with Kyla Givehand. We can't put that on Zoom. So there are a few that aren't, but I'm going to tell you, you are missing out if you don't come to this one. Last year we had great people, but this is the topics that people are speaking on this time are really great.
Oh, yeah. Be a lot of fun, for sure.
And Christine Ashworth is introducing her book that she wrote about Scott Cunningham, An Unfinished Life. And it's going to be, I'm sure, quite moving, the writing of that book that's coming out, which they've already are planning to record that, put that on audio. In fact, she's auditioning to be the voice of that. I hope she gets it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? So it's going to be a lot of fun. And you need to find your prom outfit. So what are you wearing?
That's right.
What are you wearing?
A baby blue tux.
Do you have one of those?
No.
You can always go get one.
Yeah.
You gonna go get
How about
one?
that?
Yeah.
Baby blue tux.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So it's going to be fun.
With a top hat.
Okay. We can do that.
There you
Yeah. I say, and if you don't want to dress up, that's fine too. So who won? Angela won. We did it already.
Angie Bryant won the Shungite plate, and Leslie won the earrings.
The Shungite plate's cool. If you do not have one of those on your phone, I want to tell you something. People who do not believe in crystals at all, they don't believe maybe in one thing that we do in the store. The one thing they will come in and get is Shungite because of the 5G stuff and all that kind of stuff. The radiologist at the doctor the other day told me they all get Shungite. I mean, almost all of them know about Shungite.
That's
so
right.
you want to get some sort of Shungite, especially on your phone. If you don't put it on speaker and you're putting it up to your head, you are making a mistake if you don't have one of those on the back of your phone. I'm not claiming that it'll save you from all the 5Gs. I'm just saying it's going to be one little defensive measure you can take. So, yeah.
So make sure you guys are following and getting the little alerts from YouTube for us. Make sure you give us a thumbs up if you like the show tonight, and join us next week.
And by the way, Matt, hipster to me is a compliment.
To me, it's not
Because, no, let me finish.
freaking hipster.
Stop it. Because I love you, but stop for a second. I think of like kind of preppy, but kind of
Hipster.
not. Well, yeah, I always thought you were. When I met you, I thought you were kind of hipster.
I don't know that I've ever been described that way, but if you say it's a compliment, then I'll take it.
It
I'll
is,
take
to
that.
me, it is a big compliment.
Okay.
I think they're always smart and they're with it and I don't know. What? I mean, it's better than calling somebody like a dumbass.
Well, no, I'd rather, if those are my two choices, then yeah, I'll take hipster.
Just wait
yeah.
till I find the hipster videos to send Matt now.
I think it's a compliment.
You thought the Bigfoot videos and stuff I sent you was good. Wait till you see the hipster
I
videos.
can't wait.
Do y'all know, I know we've got to go, but do y'all know that I have now hanging, did we talk about this?
No.
I have never had an air freshener, thing that you hang from your rearview mirror, ever. Like, you just don't put those on my rearview mirror. I'm sorry, but I think they're tacky. And so I get in my car, and I'm like, what is this? And it's Bigfoot, and guess what? I haven't moved him yet.
But he's been in there for like a month.
He stayed.
I was going to say he probably smells good, but maybe not anymore.
We need to name him. Maybe I maybe he's stinky now, and I need a new one.
Probably like skunk ape.
Yeah. But anything else of where they need to go, all the stuff, it's pretty much tied,
That's
right?
it. Yep. Go
Pretty much tied.
theinternationaldivinationevent.com. You can find all the information. Not only that, we have ticket information up there. There's vendor information up there. There's even the program book is actually on the website. So if you want to get a peep, quick look at what's happening and what people are talking about, go on the website, take a look at the program book.
Jamie Elford did a great job on that, and we really appreciate it. And everyone who turned in the nice ads and bought ads. Yeah, it's going to be great. Yep. We're looking forward to it. Well, thanks, everyone. Do you want to close it out?
Yeah, so y'all join us next week. Do we know what we're talking about next week?
We are talking about how to survive big events and use your energy to recover from those big events and all the tools that we have at SoulTopia.
I'm going to let you do that then. I'm going to take off.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys.
All right.
Make sure you follow us. Make sure you share. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. And we will see you guys next week. Or, better yet, come to Tide this weekend and we'll see you then.
Yeah.
All right,
Good
guys.
night.
Good night. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to SoulWhat, a SoulTopia production. If you're intrigued, searching, or looking to schedule a reading of your very own, visit us in sunny Dallas, Texas, or visit us online at facebook.com/SoulTopia Holistic Boutique. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting platform to be the first to hear those every Tuesday at 7:30 Central.